Just tell your name, you say hi, then I'll do the intro. Okay. Hi, good evening. Welcome to one more session of our informative webinars. Today we are talking about hormones. So I'm Nabila, this is Simran Chopra. Hi.
Hi. So this is one of our many sessions. We're going to be dividing them up every week into either, I feel like I have myself online.
Hi, good evening. Welcome to one more session of
Sorry. I don't even know where it is. Okay. We will be doing them every week. We're going to be doing live recipes, experts coming in. You'll have an expert next week, and live workouts. So every Saturday at about 4:30. Today's is all about hormones and how they affect weight gain. We're going to be covering three main topics. I'll let Nabila take that.
Yes. So obviously, what we normally talk about a lot is, I have an hormonal imbalance, it's causing me weight gain, this is happening, that is happening, but we do not really know what exactly hormones are, what they do. Most of the time, it's just a term that is thrown around which says it's an hormonal imbalance, correct? So what we are trying to do today is sort of decode it, try to put it as simply as possible so that, every one of us here is able to understand what exactly it is. So we are just breaking it down into three major things. One would be where we talk about the most common one. First, obviously, what are hormones, right? What are the signs for it? The next one would be the most common one which comes around, which is PCOS, thyroid. And then we talk about three important hormones, which not a lot is spoken about them, right? But stick till the end because we have a surprise for you, right? So just to begin with, the first one, like I was saying, in general, what exactly are hormones, right? So these are like tiny messengers, you can call them, which travel through your bloodstream, go to your organs, go to tissues, and they each have a unique function. That's like the most simplest way to tell it. And so they are chemical messengers, right? And they move around in our body doing multiple things. So we'll just try to work on, talk about a few of those to start with, right? Now, how do we know what a hormonal imbalance looks like? Signs.
All right. So you will find a lot of symptoms a lot of the symptoms overlap. We are going to go over three main ones today, and you're going to have to stick around. We're doing PCOS, thyroid. We're going to talk about cortisol. We're going to talk about leptin resistance and prolactin, because these are the three that are not usually spoken about, which cause havoc on weight gain. And generally, now, if you're looking at finding out whether you have a hormonal imbalance, some of the very common sort of symptoms are feeling very tired all the time, having difficulty losing weight even when you're trying to do everything, feeling hungry all the time, having disturbed sleep. Irregular periods is one, but it's not common to all. So these are the sort of very large, far-reaching ones, and then each of them has specific symptoms under them. So if we will probably start off talking about
the most common
ones, which are PCOS and thyroid. Now, this is something that we talk about a lot on Instagram. You will be able to find it there. My Instagram handle is here. Now, what people don't talk about is that PCOS and thyroid usually come together. We assume that you have one, but they come together, and there's another one that comes with it, which we'll talk about. The signs and symptoms are, we all know, right? With PCOS, you have you have weight gain, acne. So PCOS has three sections to it: androgens, if your androgens are very high, insulin resistance, and cis. This will lead to having weight gain, feeling fatigued, will be hair, acne, are just some of them that you will see.
Periods.
Yeah, irregular periods is the most common one, of course. Now, what we see a lot is that people struggle with weight here specifically, because both of these cause you to feel very tired, very lethargic, and PCOS has also been related to anxiety and depression. So all of them are things that will start pulling you down, which causes then drives away any chance of motivation or willpower that you would require to do the things that help you to lose weight. You're more likely to binge, especially in PCOS where insulin resistance is predominant. So here your sugar levels are fluctuating, and nearly everyone with PCOS has some level of insulin resistance, and as their sugar levels fluctuate, cravings will fluctuate as well, and then binge eating becomes a very common thing, coupled with fatigue, which means you don't want to move. So you're eating more and you are moving less because of what the hormones are making you feel like. So there's a lot more on this already on Instagram, so I would rather move on. So everybody knows PCOS and thyroid because it's the most common ones, but the ones that we have found that are becoming more and more predominant today, especially the one that is joined to PCOS and thyroid, and we see it appear with PCOS and thyroid across the board, which is never diagnosed. It is, most people are unaware of it. So we're going to talk about that, and it is specifically prolactin. Now, Nabila, can you help me with what are the signs, symptoms of prolactin, how it works, what do we do about it?
Right. Okay. So now, first prolactin. First, we'll understand why we have that particular hormone in our body. Correct. So prolactin is nothing but is secreted once you deliver. Right. So postpartum, this helps in milk production. Yeah, so this is normal, it's expected, and it has to happen post a pregnancy, right? So so what happens is your prolactin levels go higher once you have delivered a baby, because you need to nourish your baby. Now in this scenario, great, but what happens is for people who are non-pregnant, people who are not feeding, sometimes there are chances that your prolactin can go high, right? So this is a cause for alarm, right? Yeah. Now the signs, like you mentioned, is pretty similar to PCOS. Most common ones would be irregular periods, acne, body hairs, you get facial hair, all of that. But two specific things which would make it stand out from PCOS is breast tenderness, and you have a very milky secretion that can happen, right? Secondly, you'll have constant headaches, right? So if these signs coupled with the regular one, which is irregular periods, or having skin, hair, all of those issues which are normally related to PCOS, you see this and the other two, which is three, the breast tenderness, the milky secretion, and also constant headaches, then it could be a increase in prolactin.
Yeah.
Right. Now and this is pretty common, right? People are not even really aware that this happens, because it sort of gets lost in between all PCOS and behind thyroid, because according to studies, we have about 9 to 17% of women who have high prolactin, right? And out of these, mostly would be coupled with PCOS. Yeah. And the way that you can find it out is obviously by doing a blood test, right? So if it is a high prolactin in your blood, which shows that okay, you have a higher prolactin. Yeah. Now, interestingly, as someone pointed about, right, this is also related to your thyroid. So if your thyroid hormones are lesser, that they are not secreted, then there is a chance that your prolactin is high, right? So what happens is, naturally, because high prolactin, lower thyroid hormones, you feel tired, lethargic, you're not able to work out, which ultimately leads to weight gain.
Yeah. Also, the thing with prolactin is, in the beginning, the headaches are something that we see that are usually ignored, because I have a headache. Yeah. Now, obviously, we've done lots of sessions on headaches, and we do this a lot on the program. So, especially in the investigation program now, where we're specifically looking for why a person has an issue. Now, you might have headaches all the time and might think, it's just because I'm not drinking enough water or something. There are multiple reasons these happen, and the most overlooked one is prolactin. Constant headaches, extremely high, and the fact that it usually appears with thyroid and PCOS makes life very difficult, also causes infertility.
Yes.
Right, again pushes up anxiety. There are multiple studies showing that some vitamins can sort of help with prolactin, but of course it's not okay to talk about in a general setting, because you don't take them blindly, you have to do those tests. So it also depends on prolactin levels. Yes. Now, usually below 1,000, your doctor might not medicate you. It really depends on what the doctor is seeing as the parameters, but in some cases where it is at very high levels, medication is required, right? So I would say, actually, to be very honest, if you have PCOS or thyroid and you've experienced lots of headaches and breast tenderness, you should just check your prolactin. But just make sure that you check it when you are extremely relaxed. Prolactin is affected by cortisol.
Right.
If you are stressed, prolactin will show high, so that will be like a false reading. So sometimes they make you take it 3 times. You don't really need to do that, but if you are just checking it offhand, try to do it when you're relaxed. So maybe not after a whole day at work and doing it at night, because while your mind, you might not think you're stressed, your body deals with stress differently. It's tiredness is also considered slightly, like it would be a slightly stressful situation to take it in. Your best taking it on a sort of relaxing day. Right, so that's definitely want to check, because prolactin can absolutely wreak havoc, and it goes unnoticed all the time. I think nearly 90% of the cases that we have caught, people did not know that they had prolactin, and when they checked it, that they realized that they did. I mean, imbalanced prolactin levels. So that's a very common one that is causing multiple issues now. Like Namila said, you're going to feel really tired again, and tiredness means less exercise, wanting to eat more, relax more, automatically causing weight gain. And it's a vicious cycle, because you can't really break out of it, especially if it comes with PCOS and thyroid, right? So in these cases, the best thing to do is, there are foods that help with prolactin. We can talk about that separately. Then obviously the idea is to focus on the protocols for all 3 if you have all 3. And in the beginning, it actually can be very hard, because unfortunately in this case you cannot take it slow. You have to do all of it together, because you can't just do the PCOS protocols and not to the thyroid, or just do PCOS thyroid and not to the prolactin. You have to do all 3. So in the beginning, it's going to be hard. Weight loss, I think, would be secondary. I would look personally, when we are working with patients, we're looking personally at let's say the first month and a half, even 2 months of just trying to bring these things slightly under control, where an individual has more energy, where it's slightly under control, where they have the ability to do these things. Because most times what happens is a vicious cycle starts, where you have to do everything plus try to lose weight. It becomes so hard that people tend to give up. Now the idea is to take it one step at a time. Now this is just one of them. The next one that we wanted to talk about was
cortisol, which will relate to this, because it's to do with stress.
So cortisol is given a really bad rep by people, right? You go to the doctor, and the doctor is like, stress mat lo, like reduce stress, don't take stress, but it doesn't work like that. Now cortisol is not always bad for you. Cortisol works within our circadian rhythm, biological, and it is time, and it is supposed to be released at those times of the day. Now the problem happens when you have excess cortisol. This comes from stress, but let me explain. The problem with stress is, it is called perceived stress. What might be stressful to one might not be stressful to another. For example, I hate roller coasters. It gives me the jeebies.
I like it.
And she likes roller coasters, so she's going to enjoy it, where I'm going to release lots of stress hormones. Now, but even if she likes it, if she goes on it once, it's fine. If she goes on it 100 times, this is going to cause stress. So stress is not always to do with everything that's going wrong in the world and mentally that you're stressed. It is the other kind of stressors that come in. Stress, basically, cortisol is released when the body thinks it is in danger. So it goes into flight mode, where it is trying to save you. When it is trying to save you, it doesn't really care about things that are not important to your survival. For example, reproduction, which is why people with high stress are seen to have digestive issues, reproductive issues, all sorts of issues. The thing with cortisol is that it also affects the other hormones.
Yes, we were talking the other one about leptin.
And progesterone and estrogen. So when people talk about, when we are talking about high estrogen, low estrogen, progesterone, why you're not getting your periods, why you have very heavy periods, very light periods, all of that is a combination of how estrogen and progesterone react with each other. Wherein, like, think of the Libra scales. We are constantly trying to balance these two hormones, progesterone, and estrogen, right? The problem is, when your stress is high, and I mean perceived stress, when you feel you are stressed, whether you are or not, it's different, it doesn't matter. If you perceive that you are stressed, cortisol is released. When cortisol is released, the body can make one of two, cortisol or progesterone. So when it is making lots of cortisol, it will not make progesterone. Progesterone will drop, estrogen will go up, and then you will see issues. So here it creates another cycle where you've created a new hormonal imbalance for no reason, right? Which then causes issues with periods. It causes heavy periods, extreme bleeding, can cause low iron, etc., etc. And it's a vicious cycle that keeps going. Again, here I would say just use the symptom tracker that we sent out before.
Right.
Write it down because it will help you find out if you have high estrogen, low estrogen, high progesterone, etc. But that is why if you see in the symptom tracker, I've kept a section for sleep and stress where you count your stress and you mark it on 0 to 10 so that you see how you react on the next day. Now, because it messes with these hormones, you automatically again have less energy, less enthusiasm to do things. Now, unlike in thyroid and PCOS, sometimes we see a lowered metabolic rate. It might not happen with cortisol. You won't maybe see a lowered metabolic rate, but you will feel more tired because the body is constantly in fight or flight, like, oh my god, the body cannot distinguish between you running from a lion or you're stuck in traffic yelling at someone to get out of the way. To it, both are stress, right? It's going to treat both the same, which is why you have to look at, like they say, you have to look at stress and say, is it really something that I need to bother myself with? Can I let it go? Because if you don't, what we don't realize is automatically it's messing with our hormones, right? So cortisol is one that causes a lot of issues because it causes bad mood. Yeah, low progesterone does that. It causes, again, with progesterone, estrogen being off, it can cause more anxiety.
Yes.
All these are going to cause multiple issues in adherence.
Yeah.
So here, while energy might not drop in all cases, what will happen is you will be so anxious. Why is this not working? Why is that not happening? All that will add up, and when you are trying to lose weight, you're actually not doing it because of the mental state and the physical state of being, it's like being a high charge Duracell bunny all the time.
It also increases heart rate,
Yeah.
so you're not able to do like cardios and good amount of
So it bothers you in most ways. So cortisol is one that we are saying, because of the way life is now, has gone up across the board. Now, extreme cortisol can also be tested. You don't need to, but it can be tested. Extreme high cortisol will show up in body on the way the body stores fat. You will also see people with extreme, like these fat humps at the back, right up here, all from high cortisol. So that is dealt with a little bit differently because we need to, it could be either way. It could just be that you're making too much, your estrogen is very high, or you're not making enough progesterone. It could be multiple things which have to be dealt with.
Right.
But most people don't even associate cortisol right now with the problems that there are with estrogen and progesterone, right? Now this is just one, but you were talking about leptin resistance.
Yes.
So why don't you first actually just tell them, leptin resistance is probably the most interesting one, and let Nabila, at least, why don't you tell us what leptin is and what it's...
But also it's pretty vast and a little complicated to understand, right? This is to do with your hunger.
Yeah.
Yes. So this hormone actually triggers when you feel hungry.
So it triggers when you should stop eating. So it is the satiety hormone.
Yes.
So it tells you this is the time. So basically there are two.
Yeah.
Ghrelin is your hunger hormone. It tells you when to eat. Leptin tells you when to stop eating. Right. Now, usually the amount of leptin you have depends on the amount of fat that is stored. So the idea is, what the body does is, if you have more fat, if we were hunter-gatherers, it thinks that, okay, you have more fat, you don't need to find food right now, you don't need more food right now, you are fine, so you will not feel as hungry, right? And it will, and when you eat small amounts, you will start feeling full fast because leptin is released saying, hey, you're done, I'm not hungry anymore, stop eating. So technically, this would have created energy balance so that you don't overeat.
Right.
If you have more high levels of body fat, you don't overeat, right? This is also why people, when they are dieting and trying to lose weight, when body fat starts to drop, right, leptin now is being released much more because body fat is left. So more leptin is being released saying, hey, I'm hungry, eat more. Hey, I'm hungry, eat more. Which is why if the diet is not structured right, if the macros are not structured right, you're going to have insane cravings. That is why you see it a lot on the fat diets, right? The insane cravings, people want to eat much more to a point that, because it's connected to fat.
Right.
Now, based on this, you would think, okay, now nobody should ever get, put on weight because if fat is high and then leptin is telling you to stop eating, you should never.
Right.
That's the ideal. But now what we are starting to see is leptin resistance, which means signs and symptoms of this would be that you feel very hungry and you want to continue eating even though you know you're full, or even though you know the amount of food that you've eaten is enough.
Okay.
You have leptin resistance because you're still, your body is telling you, oh, I'm hungry, I need to eat more. This is that feeling of, I'm hungry, I feel like eating something, I am hungry, even though you know you've eaten enough. You have the number of calories, which is why we see that even in when people are perceived to be put on a diet, they are told that, they just automatically start thinking that, oh, I'm not eating enough, and the calories are enough, right? But they're leptin resistance, where they're thinking, I need to eat more, I need to eat more. This is actually made worse with high fat diets, which is why I think, so while science has not figured out the causes of leptin resistance, it's quite a vast topic being researched extensively, but it is associated with high fat diets, and people we've seen that the research shows that people who are on very high fat diets usually have more leptin resistance because they don't know when to stop eating, and it causes little more inflammation. So in this case, if you are someone who you know that the food is enough, but you're still hungry, you still want to eat more, you have excessive cravings, you might have leptin resistance. In this case, you're looking at maybe a low fat diet, which is slightly anti-inflammatory, so that you can sort of counter the leptin to eventually bring it back. Now, of course, leptin is again associated with ghrelin. They're all completely fighting with each other all the time. So the body is amazing that it needs to maintain homeostasis, right? Just like homeostasis is basically means status quo, like it needs to stay where it is. Think of the Libra scales again, right? They want to stay in the same place all the time, but they keep moving. So nearly every hormone has an opposing sort of hormone, right?
Yeah.
You have, just like you have fight and flight for stress, you have rest and digest. So there's all the time, so there's always a balance. The balance for leptin is ghrelin, which is your hunger hormone and makes you feel hungry.
Right.
Now this is affected by poor sleep. So when you don't sleep properly, ghrelin goes up. And when ghrelin goes up, you feel more hungry, you overeat, and if you have leptin resistance, the body will not tell you to stop eating, and you will keep overeating. Now, unlike PCOS and thyroid, which cause fatigue, PCOS, thyroid, prolactin will cause fatigue, which make you feel tired, slightly lower metabolic rate, cause weight gain. Cortisol will then mess with your progesterone, estrogen, cortisol, again make you feel fatigued, will cause weight gain because you won't be moving around, you'll be very, very stressed, and you'll find everything too overwhelming, right? But the worst one is the ghrelin and leptin, because and I would say sleep would be one of the major things when people are trying to lose weight, because when you don't sleep enough, ghrelin goes up. If ghrelin is up, you cannot stop yourself from overeating because your body is telling you to eat. Yeah, taking a Red Bull or something like that will not work. So if you go and eat, you will be really hungry, and then you will overeat. If you have leptin resistance, the leptin is not telling you to stop eating. You see the vicious cycle?
Right. And I think this is a common thing which we also do see when people say that, yes, I had not slept the previous night, which is why I overate. It's one of the symptoms I think you can also watch out for if that happens to you. Not good sleep, maybe eating more the next day, that's a sign.
So other symptoms of sort of leptin resistance that you can also see are when people have osteoporosis, right? If people have usually have a lower metabolism as well, we find people with lower metabolism has leptin resistance, obviously feeling more hungry all the time. So there are multiple things to look at, and I would say that if you think that you have symptoms that are not common to the people around you, there's something to be sort of discussed, right? Even if it is, I get a lot of headaches, why? Right? I just have too many cravings, nobody else behaves like that, why? Right. The body is always telling you something, and the problem is we are not listening. I think that is why we came up with the investigation program. I mean, it's just literally just deep diving into a person to figure out where is the problem, right? We're not even looking at, we're looking at just what can be done, where is the problem, what can be done about the problem. That's it. Because I find today everybody's jumping into everything like this PCOS, thyroid, oh, I have PCOS, I have thyroid, I have PCOS, maybe I have PCOS, maybe I have low metabolism, maybe not. Maybe you have leptin resistance, maybe your ghrelin is off, maybe your cortisol is through the roof, maybe you have prolactin. Why are we looking at something else? Right? I mean, there are multiple vitamins and minerals that also cause weight gain. We'll talk about that later, maybe in a different session. But the fact is that if something is off, the best thing to do is to figure it out. Don't jump into a diet. Most people tell us, oh, we're not losing weight. I've tried everything, I'm not losing weight. And you know, the first and always, if you do want to do this, I would say weight is secondary, fixing the issue is first and primary. And if that is primary, because if you don't fix this issue, if you have leptin resistance, you can lose weight right now, you will gain it right after.
Yes.
Because you didn't fix leptin resistance, right? There's no point this is like fixing the, I mean, I'm trying to find an analogy. It's like fixing something which didn't cause the problem.
Right.
You know, a bit like, you know, if let's say your wiring is off in your house and your what is that, bulb keeps fusing, you keep changing the bulb every day, but you need to actually change the wiring.
Correct.
Now, if when you don't do that, you're just wasting money on the bulb.
Right.
Correct? Which is what people do, they keep jumping into it. I would say don't look at the weight loss fast, spend a month, maybe first of all, I would say a month is very little, but most people don't want to listen because none of these things, you didn't get any of these things in 1 month, 2 months, 3 months.
Right.
You know, people have been struggling with PCOS or any of these things for like years, 10 years, 6 years, 15 years, all different, and they want it fixed in a month. It can't. In a month, we can control it a little bit if with 100% like a lot of consistency. But first, to figure out what the issue is, right? And that will take like a week or two. So figure out what the issue is. Once you have the issue, focus on the issue, not the outcome, right? So you're focusing on the wiring, not on the bulb. Fix that first. Once you have that, you realize that once the wiring is fine, the bulb you put is just going to stay.
Yeah.
Correct? So fix that. Even if it takes 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, the primary goal with hormonal imbalances should not be weight loss. It should be fixing the hormonal imbalance, right? And once we do that, and whoever you do it with, if you have an hormonal imbalance and they're trying to just fix weight loss, you're going to be stuck in this cycle forever, because we need to fix the primary issue. So those are the 3 sort of main ones. There are many more that we can get into, right? But what do you see sort of as the main one that you see people overlooking the most?
I would say prolactin, because pretty recently is what it's been noticed that, you know, in certain places where people are figuring out that they have a high prolactin, but after a very long time. Right, they have been suffering with the symptoms for, you know, like months together, constant headaches, feeling tired, feeling anxious, lots of things, and only then it's like the last resort, right? Which is said that, okay, fine, maybe let me just get this tested, it could be this, right?
And
so
in most cases the doctors don't even ask you to test it, which is the biggest problem, right? Unless it's a gynecologist, most other doctors don't even bring it up. They don't even. We've never heard anyone say that. They very rarely have we seen someone's reports where prolactin has been tested, and when it has, it's usually for the gynecologist.
Right.
Otherwise, we don't see it. But if you have thyroid, PCOS, and you have any of these symptoms, you should just have it checked. It's just one test. It's about being proactive with this, right? What do you lose the most? You just lose like $400-500, but if you do have it, the amount of suffering you want to go through and all the random pills, because what is the point of popping headache pills when the problem is not there? It's the prolactin. Again, you're fixing the bulb without fixing the wiring, right?
Correct.
So that is something that we've seen. Prolactin is something I think we're seeing the most. Leptin resistance, really, there is a test again for leptin resistance. It's expensive. There is no need to do it. If you have the symptoms, it's much simpler to just find. Again, it depends on the kind of dietitian you're working with, whether they have the sort of information, or even if they have the ability to find these things, because I think it also it lies on both sides.
Right.
If you are just pushing for weight loss, that dietitian, whoever it might be, will have no choice but to work with that. But if you're like, give me time and figure out what in the world is wrong and let's fix that, the person has more knowledge. And I'm saying this because it's not just our team, but any team out there, because if everybody's done an MSc in nutrition dietetics, nearly everybody has, and everybody's constantly studying. Most people will be up to date. If they are up to date, they have the ability to sort of do this.
Right.
Many may not be up to date. That is a different thing, correct? So, but anyway, one of the things is that if you have any of these, you have to work with someone with a degree, someone who has experience in these sections, clinical nutritionists, clinical dietitians. This is not something that you can mess with. Please don't listen to aunties, uncles, neighbors, because the kind of damage that you can cause is long lasting, right?
Okay. So I think that's about
Yeah, so
it.
we'll take
But
questions.
Yes.
We'd love to hear from you what questions you have.
We do
I know-
have a few questions
Yeah, so
actually.
this is kind of a sort of information dense. Like if we were doing this for our nutritionists, when we were doing it together, it would be very, very technical. This is sort of simple to sort of understand. But any question that you have, we are absolutely here to help you with them. The other thing is, it was Nabila's idea to give to have a surprise today, because according to her, she said that everybody who probably is coming in here would probably have some issue, and for that this is completely on her. I'm going to let her take that.
Right, well, so we will finish the questions first. I see that we have two questions from people. One is, if I don't work out in the morning, my cravings are bad until I work out. Is it also related to leptin resistance or related to any other hormone? A little background, I do have PCOS diagnosed.
I don't know why I can't see the questions, comments. Okay. No, so with PCOS, you have insulin resistance. The research shows that when you exercise in the morning, you open up your insulin resistance window. Your glucose uptake for the next 24 hours gets much, much better, which means that your body absorbs and utilizes glucose from all food through the day much better if you exercise in the morning, which is why your cravings will come down. But if you don't exercise in the morning, what is happening is, there are two things. If you're always in the morning, you have created and put that into your circadian rhythm or your biological clock. Your body is used to it. When that doesn't happen and that excess sugar has not been used up, what does the body do with it? Right? It is going to crash, go up, crash. And it will cause cravings. So ideally, you will need to exercise in the morning. Now, if you can't exercise in the morning, what I would suggest is then to reduce the refined carbohydrates in the meals leading up to the exercise. Focus on really protein dense meal, or make sure there's enough protein in each meal. Use complex carbohydrates like brown rice, millets, etc. over like just plain white rice or a poha kind of thing. Add a lot of vegetables. This will sort of, you basically need foods that will slowly release glucose now, rather than great spikes. That is something that will sort of help you reduce those cravings completely. I would prefer for you to then maybe write down on these days what you ate and what time the craving was, what you ate, what time the craving was, so you can find the pattern for yourself, because everyone is different.
Okay. Yes, that was Manika. I hope that answered your question. So we have one more which says, so everything does go around circadian rhythm, but we have different work timings. How to control leptin hormone imbalance then?
So here's the thing. The research shows that if the circadian rhythm and night shifts don't go together, it will mess with your body, it will mess with your biological clock, it will mess with your hormones, and there's nothing that you can do about it. In most cases, it is recommended, especially if you're trying to get pregnant, to switch this, and I understand a lot of people cannot. Then you will have to focus on including the days that you are off in switching your timings completely, and you can understand how inconvenient this is going to be. It will require you to have exposure to sunlight at the right time, then sleep in completely dark environments, trying to trick your body into understanding that it's in a new time zone, which it's not practical, nearly impossible to do. It's still not going to function right. Now, what happens though, at least what you can start with is, if you're doing that night shift, you still need exposure to sunlight in the morning. If you don't get that, you would have to find a way to get that. You have sun exposure lamps. You'll have to talk to your company about that. It's used a lot abroad, especially during daylight saving. Then you will have to sleep for good 8 to 10 hours in pitch black darkness, right? You will have to have a 12-hour window. During that sleep window, which you have no food. Right? So usually we would say, if you had dinner, then you leave 10 to 12 hours and have your breakfast, right? And that's also your sleep cycle. Here everything is thrown off, because leptin and ghrelin, they have certain timings when they are. So leptin, I think, is highest in the middle of the night. You're not supposed to feel hungry at like 3 a.m. And 2 a.m. You're supposed to be fast asleep. Whereas ghrelin is highest at around noon, which is why you get those lunch munchies where you're ready to eat. This is how the human body is built. Unfortunately, very, very difficult to change this. You have to look at that window to sleep and that 10 hours, so you have to switch it out. Now everybody's schedule is different. You will need someone to sit down and do this with you, but to the best possible solution, but it is still not going to be even close to ideal.
Right. It can be worked.
Can be, but it's not going to be even close to ideal. You can't, what do you do with your leptin is supposed to be lowest at, let's say, 3 a.m. and then you're wide awake, and then you're like, come, let's go have coffee with a friend, come, we'll eat something from the cafeteria. Everything is being thrown off.
Yeah, it gets messed up, yes. Okay, so now, so someone just asks, where do we start and what are the initial steps? I think she means to understand hormonal imbalance, sort of. I think, where do you start? What are the first steps for it?
So see, hormonal tests are extremely expensive, and there are many of them. If you have to do all of them, you're talking in terms of like 20 grand plus. Which is not recommended. I would recommend spending some time, if you're already on a program with someone, if it's our team or someone else on our team on the private diet coaching, they would be able to do this. It will go into a different section where we are just trying to figure out what is the problem, which is just about asking you a million questions and giving you something to try, and then asking you 1 more million questions and giving you something to try, till you can find and say, hey, okay, so you have all the markers for this issue, so let's just test this first, right? Instead of saying go spend 20,000 rupees and test everything. It's ridiculous, because some of these tests also depend on where you are within your cycle. Some depend on, let's say, stress, like prolactin. They are all over the place. So someone tells you just go do all the tests and come. It's ridiculous and a complete waste of money, right? You don't need to test everything. Now if I think that your testosterone is high, I don't need you to test prolactin. But if I think your prolactin is high, I don't need you testing FSH and androgen, and I don't need you testing all this stuff. Correct? So it really depends. So for that, I would say you have to do a deep dive. First of all, if you think something is off, you can go to my Instagram. There's so many things that tell you about whether your hormones are off. If they are, look at those symptoms, and if you have them, that's when you look at doing a deep dive and getting into it. But nearly for every single hormonal issue that exists, getting in 6 to 7 hours of sleep, fixing your circadian rhythm, which means sleeping at nearly the same time every day, sun exposure in the morning, drinking enough water, eating enough vegetables and fruits, and enough adequate protein, and a moderate fat and a moderate sort of carb diet will help. Not because this is generalized, because that is sort of the ideal way that the human body sort of functions, right, at the moment. So
yeah, okay, thank you. So Priya, that was for you. And there's one more question which says, I'm having PCOD, but my periods are regular. The side effect that I have is facial hair and a lot of cravings. Will exercise help in managing this?
Cravings, facial hair?
Yes.
And PCOS under control?
No, periods are regular, but is diagnosed with PCOS.
Okay, so why we don't know why she's diagnosed with PCOS. Periods are regular. There are 3 things: cysts, insulin resistance, androgen. So obviously she's high androgen.
Right.
If your periods have been regular for 6 to 7 months, that is when you can go and look at maybe trying laser for the hair. Okay, right? Otherwise, don't bother. And by regular, and you have to check if you have cysts or not yet. So that's another thing to check. You might want to do your HbA1c to check how your insulin resistance is doing. This will give you sort of an average. So these will be very easy, because before you go spend on like 50-60 grand on laser, just HbA1c is a very cheap test, and so you do that. Cravings, again, insulin resistance mean, so maybe you still, the insulin resistance is not fixed if you have cravings, because that is usually very high. Cravings are very high if your meals are all far apart, or if your sugar drops goes up because your meal is not created properly to manage blood sugar, or if you're not eating enough protein, right? So now technically your craving might be associated with insulin resistance because your blood sugar is fluctuating, or it might just be one of the others, that the gap between meals is too much, protein is not enough. So fixing it, nearly all cravings can be fixed. We need to first figure out why you have that craving, because telling you to fix insulin resistance when it actually might be a protein deficiency, again, so we need to know, we need to look at what you are already doing to figure out what's causing it. Again, write down what you ate when you're craving the most. What you ate when you're craving the most, you'll find it yourself.
Right. Okay. Now, so another one says, my cravings are more at night than in the morning hours. What is the reason? I have hypothyroidism.
Usually this happens when you're trying to do a very restrictive diet. You try to keep everything perfect during the day.
Right.
And at night is when you sort of over.
Yeah.
The other thing is also because most people who have stressful days through the day, then they feel at night, this is my time to chill and relax.
Right.
I will watch Netflix, I will chill and relax. Most people have been conditioned through childhood that food is equal to reward, right? This is how you relax.
Comfort.
So for example, let's celebrate, let's go out for lunch, just like what we did today. Let's celebrate, it's our anniversary, let's go for dinner.
Yes.
I got a promotion, oh, you owe me a treat. I had a really bad day, I need a tub of ice cream. So this is all related. If this is something that you're used to, and if you're very stressed through the day, it could be that is why when you are relaxed at night, when you're overeating and you want something that comforts you. Right. That could be one. The other could be too low calories or too little protein throughout the day, causing more even at night. Right. Those are the two possible ones that are there. Again, very low amount of food during the day could also cause a drop in blood sugar, causing you to want to eat more at night.
Right. Okay, so that was for another question. Because of my PCOS, my weight is stuck. What do I do?
So your weight is not stuck because of PCOS. The weight is stuck because of the fatigue that comes with it, that you feel tired all the time, you don't feel like moving. The PCOS causes that. It also causes a little bit of anxiety. PCOS doesn't intrinsically on its own cause weight gain. It's a side effect of feeling tired that causes the weight gain. So what we need to do here is, horrible as it's going to sound, you're going to have to push yourself in the beginning, right? There is literally no other way. Think of it like being stuck in a hole and you have to dig yourself out. In the beginning, it is going to be hard. Once you get out of the hole, everything is easy, right? In the beginning, the first maybe 1 month, you have to really push yourself, and nobody else can push you. This whole, please, this one needs to motivate me, that one not motivating me, doesn't work. If it worked, if I told someone stop smoking, they'd stop smoking. There would be absolutely no issues with any addiction problems on the planet if you could just tell someone stop and they stopped, right? If you have parents and one of them smokes and the other one is badgering them all the time, you will know that it does not work, right? So you will have to push yourself. Absolutely nobody else can do it, just for 1 month. While doing this, for PCOS, you have to exercise, ideally morning, you have to move through the day, you have to control your blood sugar levels based on the kind of food you are eating through the day, right? All this has to happen together. We see people don't lose weight with PCOS because most times everything is not happening together. They go on a diet. The problem with a diet is it does not control your insulin resistance or the way your sugar fluctuates through the day. If you can control the way your sugar fluctuates through the day, usually it becomes much easier to have less cravings, more energy to thereby do more. The other thing with PCOS is most people with PCOS, again, like she said, might have thyroid, might have prolactin, but most people with PCOS also have low vitamin D, which makes you feel even more tired. So check that.
Vicious cycling. So we have one more question. It's a little longer question. Is 1,200 to 1,500 calories a basic minimum calorie intake for women? If it's not followed, does it cause hormonal imbalance or does it depend on individual needs and activities?
It is a long question.
Yes, that's what I said.
Okay, 1,000 calories is less than what a toddler should eat. So not okay.
Okay.
1,500 calories would work. At 1,000 calories, yes, you will have an hormonal imbalance, but this is getting a little bit complicated. At 1,500 calories, usually you would be fine, okay? However, if you are someone who burns 5,000 calories, at 1,500 calories, you will have a major issue and hormonal imbalance. This is what we see with athletes. They are doing 4 or 5 hours of exercise, crazy amounts, burning calories, a very low calorie diet, no periods, gone. The first sign of a hormonal imbalance will be losing your periods, because the body thinks that is not important. When the body is not thriving, it completely assumes that I cannot at this point create another human being, right? If I cannot create another human being, let me shut this function off for a bit till I fix everything else, which makes complete sense, right? So don't try to get pregnant when you're having all these issues. Fix the issues first. Now in this case, I would say 1500 is okay if you are burning only 2000. Then you would actually be in a deficit and lose weight. 1500 would be okay if that is your maintenance. 1500 would be too little if you are someone who has high energy expenditure at like even at like about 2500 to 3000. At that point 1500 is too little. So it is kind of individual, but at no point can you go below, let's say 1400. You could go to maybe 1200 for a week, max a week and a half, and then come back. So this is called sort of calorie cycling, where you do like an extreme cut for some time, maybe a week, and then come out of it, go back to normal calories. So you offload, deload. There are multiple ways to do this, but you cannot hold on to 1200 calories for very long or 1000 calories for very long. It will cause major issues, right? And of course you will need crazy amount of willpower to stay at those calories. It's literally nothing.
So I'm getting signs that we're going way over our time. So,
any big questions?
I think we've answered most of them, all of them actually. There is just one point which I wanted to keep it at the end. Is someone called Dr. Goyal, who's very kind. She says, it was an awesome session. Thank you for covering the not so discussed topic, which is about prolactin. Please also include it if it's seen in teenage also, and not at all related to pregnancy in nowadays lifestyle. So we'll do that going forward, maybe in our reels or
So the thing with teenagers is, and anything under 18 is, there is a psychological aspect of how you talk to people under 18, depending on where they are, and it gets very complicated because the nutritional requirements for individuals are different based on age, which will change between 8 and 10, 10 and 12, 12 and 14, blah blah blah, and it is different from male and female, whether, and depends a lot on, is your child athletic, is it not, are they not, what are they predisposed to. So child nutrition is a very complicated space which is extremely detailed. So this is something that we might be able to do in private for sort of cohorts, like if you have kids between everyone between 15 and 18, everybody between 9 and 15, something like that. It can't be generalized because even for example, even the protein guideline is completely different for these two different ages. You know, it's
so it requires a little bit of
but we are seeing a crazy amount of girls who have started and entered their cycles and have already got hormonal imbalances at like 13, 14, 15, which is extremely sad. And what is worse is that parents are not even aware of what a hormonal imbalance looks like, and these poor girls will suffer, and it will at that age also affect growth. Right, but hopefully they will do something about it.
Okay, so that's about it with the questions. So for whoever stayed back till the end of it, the surprise bit is so we do have our programs. I do, like ma'am was saying, that you know, since you are here, you might be having problems with this. So just for the people who are with us on the live, we are doing on our private programs, which is a 1-to-1, but doing like 1500 off on all programs for the next 1 hour, right? This is valid for the next 1 hour. We will put in a code. We didn't decide the code.
No, I think the code is hormones.
Yes,
you can just
the code is hormones, correct. You can go put that on the checkout and you'll get a discounted price on 1500, right? So
on only the private diet coaching.
Yes, which is a 1-to-1.
So I actually, to be very honest, we would only recommend that private diet coaching, which is only required if you want that extra specialized service or if you have a major issue, because at that level you need clinical nutritionists to be looking at it. It's not going to fix overnight, I'm telling you this again, but you have someone looking at it that can help you and guide you towards fixing this. Otherwise, really, this is only if you have and are struggling, because if you don't have an extreme of these, any of our programs are fine. You can even do a program with anybody else. The idea is to go to people who are professionals, like just the way that you would go to a brain surgeon for surgery, or you would go to a contractor to build your house. It's similar to that. But so just don't, I think the idea is don't play with your health. This program, if you really need it, only for today, because obviously if you stayed till now, something really mattered to you, so then you can take a 1500 off on it if it is something that you need. But if you don't need it, in most places you should be fine, and I hope you are.
Right, and or get in touch with our team. Okay, we've been putting out our number, we've been putting out our website. You can just reach out to us if you have any questions. Please do ask them, give us suggestions for more such topics that you would like us to cover, right? We'd be really happy to. And I'm seeing all these comments which says that it was a great session, we are all so cool. Thank you so much. Thank you everybody for watching. So we'll continue this hopefully as we go. So every week we are looking at doing different things. As ma'am mentioned at the starting of the session, that we'll be doing workouts, we'll be doing different kinds of recipes. So we hope to see you all there as well. So every Saturday 4:30.
Yeah, thank you so much for joining us. It was lovely having you here, and hopefully it's a very informative session next week,
Yes.
which you're definitely going to want to look out for.
Have a happy weekend.
Thank you.